Oh, I see. I'm sorry, oh, hey, shoot first, shoot first, nice. Steve said he gave me two. By the way, I put it in there. You need if you ever need these two. What we have stuff from, we've got Hey, Tim Bird, how you doing, Darren? Good morning. All right, so we got Brazilian people here. Let's see if I can put you. So that table right there, we don't really have a sign. But anyway, so I was I'm introducing, and I have to set up front. So, yeah. Hey, Teresa. Danny Marshall by the helper and take him out the helper, right? Well, get in there like a vulture. Need to. I'm for libertarians.
Just go. You don't even realize, just go.
Well, I live in Virginia, so I'm looking at it. Actually, there's a lot of politics behind it. game plan's a little bit different. We don't let all those government courts over 7,000 people. Wow. All the judges. Let me be,
Hey, Mark, it's my brother Alex. Nice to meet you.
Well, yeah, we have late. We gotta go wrong.
Good morning. Welcome to Gate City Rotary. It's great to see all my friends out here this morning. Lots of them. We've been trying to fill this room all year. And it took the Lieutenant Governor to come fill it, so. Mark Trump has our invocation this morning.
Good morning, Gate City.
Good morning.
So, Lisa asked me to do the invocation, and I didn't really think that there's basically two ministers sitting in front of me, so I'll do my best. Please pray with me. Dear Lord, thank you, Father, for the gift of Rotary and for each other. Bless this food as we nourish our bodies and our minds. May we be ever mindful of those less fortunate. Help us provide food to the hungry, to heal the wounds of hatred with our love, to comfort those in sorrow, and bring peace to those living in areas of unrest. Open our eyes to see how and where we can make a difference in this world. Open our minds to new perspectives so we can better comprehend what we don't understand, and open our hearts so we can better serve our community, family, and friends. We thank you for all these gifts. Amen. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And to you Rotarians, the four-way test. Of the things we're being said and do,
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill, better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
We normally have a sergeant at arms report, reporting out on how many folks are here. I think we have about 90 folks here, probably 40 Rotarians. We're here every Thursday morning for breakfast at 7 a.m. So come join us. Come join us. Birthdays, anniversaries. Where's Rick Martin?
Man, Madam President, we have a couple today. We have 2 club anniversaries. Dr. Mike Andrews, Dr. here, Brother Center. How many years, Mike? Oh, it's 10. Yeah, a lot. That's the answer. Very good. 21. Thank you for all your service. And Kelly Darrell here today. Hey, Taylor, yes, sir. Oh, you look like you've been around a while, too, man. Yeah, well, I meant it in a good way. Yeah, how many years, Kelly? 96. 26. And thank you. And we have a Ross Geller here today. All right. Yeah, he's anniversary coming up. So we get this little heads up. And we have a birthday today. Allison, right here in front and center. So we have a tradition to birthday calls on meeting day. We sing happy birthday. So please join me in happy birthday to Allison. Ready? Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Allison. Happy birthday to you. All right.
Is Buster in the house?
Is Buster in the house?
Let's have some happy dollars.
Happy dollars, baby. All right. All right, if you're not familiar with happy dollars, you know, all these things happen in your life, good things, bad things, funny things. And so we let you tell us about them, which have to give us a dollar. And if you don't have change, that's fine. We won't So anybody wants to do a happy dollar, we actually take Venmo, we take Danielle has a happy day cash. Yeah, go ahead.
That's a big one. It's my good friend Mark Walker. Y'all may know him. He was the U.S. Congressman here, running for U.S. Senate. Danny Marshall, where's Danny? He's around here somewhere. Virginia delegate over here. And I've got lots of friends and customers, but most importantly, thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for coming out to see us today. And then the really most important thing is my little boy Wilder, who's about that tall. He helped put a $770 million deal together. He's been out of college about 8 months. And he got to go back and show the property to the Nature Conservancy because they got involved in it. And so they flew him and another guy down. When I turned him loose with the guy from Nature Conservancy, turned out it was a former professor of his at NC State University who he knew very well. So they had fun and a couple of beers, I understand, along with a lot of pine trees. But anyway, big deal for 25 years.
my business, little side hustle, the concierge business I have, is accepted into a program through the Chamber of Commerce. And I pitched in December and won. Well, the next stage is April 13th called Capital Impact. And I'm competing against 11 other entrepreneurs. The businesses are amazing. So if you guys want to support small, locally owned businesses, April 13th, Elman Bain, it's free to the public.
I'll be quick, Buster. Happy dollar for my daughter who got married this past weekend in Charleston. But the happy dollar is that I only got kicked out of my bar over there.
Wait, represent.
I'm the president-elect of Gate City, so last weekend I was happy that's all. But a quick story, we went fishing after some friends of mine in Weldon for striper and shad. And I'm in my kayak and I got one of those PFDs that was real slim. And I'm backing out of the place and it tipped over and went into the water, and flew up. In my kayak, dry as a bone, and my life blew up. And if you've ever had this happen to you, it's about choking you to death. And I go, this thing is supposed to save me from killing me. I'm looking for a life and did it all. I survived. Call some shad.
Oh, come on.
Hey, we
All
don't know that
right,
first.
no, go ahead. Stand.
Went to eat dinner with my daughter and her husband, Jeff Lee, I've been married 6 years, Sunday. And everybody had Easter egg on their table. My daughter said, everybody's got to open your egg before we eat. Opened up the egg and it said, baby girl, leave will hatch in September this year.
Oh, yeah. Well, Grandpappy Lewis, he went out on Saturday night and came in sort of in the wee hours of the morning on Sunday, and Grandma was pretty upset about it, and she was kind of giving a reason of the right act. Said, well, what would you think if I left here and you didn't see me for days? And he said, well, that'd be okay. And sure enough, he didn't see her Monday, he didn't see her Tuesday. On Wednesday, he could see her a little out of his left eye.
Thank you, Buster. Just a couple announcements. Thank you to all the members in Gate City that sponsored the Bikes for Kids initiative. We are adopting Faust Elementary, which is 100% Title I school. As soon as we send a check to Dr. Cromwell, we'll order the bikes, and once they finish the curriculum, we will award the kids the bikes in the fall. So that's a great thing, and hopefully we can continue to do that year after year. It's a smaller school. District conference, if you haven't registered, register. We have probably 5 to 10 folks going. We always have a great time. It's the end of April, the weekend of April 29th and 30th. I know Frank's going, right? I'll see you there. And then we have a Kentucky Derby fundraiser. It's our annual fundraiser, May 7th at the beautiful Brandover Resort, hosted by Kelly and his group. We're reaching capacity, but we'll still take sponsorships. And I have raffle tickets for sale today. So if you would like to buy a raffle ticket, we have some great raffle prizes. Weekends at Brandover, O'Henry, whiskey, bourbon taste, it's a bourbon tasting. So see me, or I will stand at the door and buy a ticket. Okay, anything else? Anyone else in Gate City have an announcement? Okay. Chip?
Me? Have I got that? Oh, I do. I forgot. There's something else. Here was. Last night at dinner, I got called upon, I think y'all can hear me about the microphone, I got called upon to introduce our keynote speaker. And I'm like, well, what do I say about him? I don't really know the man. So I watched a couple of videos on the internet and
thought about it, thought about what I knew about him. What I found out about him is that he's born and raised in Greensboro. He had a very unfortunate childhood. He was in a foster home for a while, eventually reunited with his mother. He's got brothers and sisters. His brothers and sisters, Mark? Okay, evidently lots of them. But anyway, he did a little stint in the U.S. Army, got a degree from A&T State University, married his wife Yolanda. They ran a daycare center here for a while. Some things happened with that. He got another job, did a few other things, decided he needed more education, got a PhD in education from UNCG. Not yet? Oh, he's still working on it. So well, you can't trust everything you see on the internet, can you? or what you hear. Yeah, Abraham Lincoln didn't like the internet at all. Anyways, bottom line is the guy that's going to come here and talk to us in just 1 minute, and he's got a little bit better voice than I do. He's going to, what I want to tell you about him is that he's a man of his family. He's a man of faith. He's a man who believes and backs our Constitution. But most importantly, he is a man of the people, and he believes in us. I give you Mark Keith Robinson, Lieutenant Governor of the state of North Carolina. By the way, as far as I know, he is the first person from Greensboro to rise, and there are a couple other notables there, but the first person to rise to that office here in the state of North Carolina from Greensboro. Please, Mark, come up and take a
Can everybody hear? Great. Okay. Very first thing is always, before we get started here, we're going to thank our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. The reason why I do that is because of the spiritual journey that I've been on. I look back at my life and I see problems that I've encountered and things that I've overcome, and it's all due to listening to Him and being obedient to Him. And I see at times when I wasn't obedient to Him, it's most painful times in my life. But when I've been obedient to Him, those have been the best times of my life, very best times. And so we give Him thanks first and foremost. And plus, truth be told, Jesus Christ is the reason why we live in this blessed and prosperous land. This country was modeled on the Judeo-Christian principle of freedom. And so we give Him thanks first and foremost for everything that we have. So a couple of corrections about my bio. So brothers and sisters, yes, my mom had 10 kids. She had 5 boys and 5 girls. I'm number 9, folks. Some of y'all might be looking at me thinking, how in the world did you get so fat? Number 9 of 10. That didn't happen until after I got away from my mom's house. Thank you very much. And I started making my own money. I made up for lost time. But seriously, my family growing up, as he said, we had a lot of difficulties. The time that I spent in foster care, I don't remember. I was a baby. But my brothers and sisters, older brothers and sisters, remember that time quite well. And it was a very difficult time. But thanks be to God, my mother was able to, and father were able to get back together. Now, some people would say that wasn't a good thing because my mother and father had a very contentious, very violent relationship. But even through those tough times, I still consider it a blessing to have grown up in a home with both of them. Quick odd fact about me, my dad, Congressman Walker knows this, and some other people in the room might know this. I was born in 1968. Most people would think that my father was probably born in the 20s or maybe the 30s. My dad was born in 1897. Yeah, 1897. He was 71 years old when I was born. He was much older than my mom. And our family dynamic was a lot different than other people's family dynamic. My mom was not allowed to leave the house. As I said, they had a very contentious relationship, but my mom would send us off to go to church. Church was the first place that I ever saw what I considered to be normal. And many of the people in the church became role models of mine. They helped me to develop a sense that I could be something more than my condition was presenting to me. And so I came up in those conditions, came up with a mother who always told me I could be whatever I wanted to be. Moved through high school. Another fact about me is when I was in high school, I've always been fascinated with the military, with uniforms, ever since I was a little kid. And when I got to high school, I joined the junior ROTC. And when I was in high school, guys, I had a plan. I wanted to be Rambo. I did. I wanted to be Rambo. I wanted to run around in the woods with a knife between my teeth, and, you know, blow up choppers with a bow and arrow and all kind of great stuff, you know. So I joined the United States Army Reserves, and I went off the basic training, and I got to know soldiers, and I started hanging around soldiers, and I even hung around some Rambos. And I found out what Rambo has to really do. And I said, yeah, I don't want to be Rambo. I'm an indoor kind of guy. I think I'm gonna go home and go to school. And so I did. I came home and I went to school at A&T, but I did not obtain a degree at A&T. I stayed at A&T about 3.2 seconds, and I think I was taking up space at A&T. I think that's what I was taking up, literally taking up space. I was not ready for college at that time, and so I dropped out of college. And then at that point in my life, I kind of wandered in my life. It wasn't until I met my wife that I got real direction in my life. I met my wife, and we had our son, and that's when I got some real direction in my life. I went and got a job at a place called Clausner Furniture in Asheville, and I learned how to upholster furniture, and I did that for a while. And then NAFTA hit and started destroying the furniture industry, so I left the furniture industry and went back to the restaurant business, which is something I had done before. And that was a very good experience, but I spent a lot of time at work. My children were very young, and I just got tired, and talked to my wife about it, decided to leave that job. I left that job, and oddly enough, I worked for Papa John's, and not too long ago, I met John Schneider again. He didn't remember me, of course, I remember him, but I met John Schneider down at CPAC in Florida. But I left that job and went back to school at A&T. This time I got a little bit more serious. You know, I was really focusing on school. I kind of learned how the system worked and was making pretty good grades, but my wife did a crazy thing while I was doing that and working at this aircraft maintenance facility. She opened a daycare center in our house. And when she did it, I thought, what are you doing? You mean people are going to bring their crying babies to this house? And I'm going to come home from third shift to be greeted by the cries of strangers' children. And I thought it was the craziest thing ever, but she did it. And here it is. We loved it. Notice I said, we loved it. That daycare center automatically, I mean, it just bang, it was a success right off the bat. We got so many children, we had to move into a freestanding building. I left school, I left my job, I dedicated full time to working in that daycare center. Now, here's what I learned working in that daycare center. What I learned working in that daycare center is this: there is no more rewarding experience than helping children. No more rewarding experience. Opening their eyes to new things, teaching them ABCs, 1, 2, 3. Feeding them. That was a huge part of it. We served a lot of underprivileged children from low-income families. And I know for a fact that the only decent meal some of those children got were the meals they got when they were inside the four walls of our daycare center. And there was no more rewarding feeling than to know that you could do that for a child. But my wife eventually, she got to the point where she was literally pulling her hair out, because while I was dealing with the children and taking the children on field trips, and teaching these children the wonders of the ABCs, and teaching them all about the wonders of the railroad, that's a different story for another time. My wife was having to deal with something called the state, and it was driving her crazy. Turning my wife into somebody different, and so she said, you know, I got to get out of this. So she decided to sell it to a friend of hers. And that daycare center is actually still in operation right over on Roundman Road. When she sold that daycare center, I went back to work in the furniture industry, something I thought I'd never do again. And I tell that story for this reason. when I went to that furniture manufacturing plant, I started there second shift, part-time second shift. Now, I've been operating this daycare center. When I was operating that daycare center, I was convinced that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. That my wife and I would operate this daycare center for many years, maybe sell it and retire and live happily ever after. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. As a matter of fact, after we sold that daycare center, we struggled greatly financially. When I went to work at this place in High Point called Steelcase, I felt broken. I felt like I'd failed. I felt like I'd run this business for all these years and it had come to naught. And I had, almost nothing to show for it. And here I am right back working in furniture again. I thought, what in the world is going on? Why am I on this journey? So I go to this place, Steelcase, thinking that, I've been a business owner. It's nothing this place could teach me. But I walked inside that place and I began to discover things about myself that I'd never known. I had to confront issues within myself that I'd never been ready to confront up to that time. And I can tell you right now, besides that daycare center, the work experience that taught me more than anything was working at Steelcase in High Point. I learned about some serious flaws that I had in my work ethic and some serious flaws that I had in my personal character that I needed to work on. And I sat down and I thought about it and I said, I believe this is really why God sent me to this place that when I first got here, I thought was a desert. I thought it was a desert, but it turned out not to be. It wasn't a desert at all. It was a place that God sent me to continue to help me to grow. And I did. I grew a great deal while I was at Steelcase. I learned many things about myself and I grew both professionally, personally, and spiritually while I was there. So while I was at Steelcase, I decided to really get serious about my education. I look back at my life and I said, every place that I've ever been, every place that I've ever worked, I always ended up being a trainer or a leader in some way. And I said, I have this extreme love for history. I mean, in my spare time, I sit down and, I'll read textbooks in my spare time about history. And I said, I need to do something with this. This is not in me for no reason. And then I thought about the impact that I had made on those children at that daycare center. I thought about the times when we did fun things like I challenged these children and I told them, the first one of you all that will learn the preamble to the Constitution and can repeat it back to me, I'll give you a prize. And I watched as those children would come in with that preamble, those after-school kids, and read it and try to learn it. And I remember the joy of the young man who was from Belize. His parents, he was originally from Belize. I remember the joy on his face when he repeated it, and he repeated it correctly and won that prize. I thought about that and I said, you know what I need to do? I need to be a teacher. I need to teach. And so I set out on a course to become a teacher. I went back to school at GTCC, prepared myself for the university setting, left GTCC and went to UNCG. And there I was working full-time at Steelcase and going to school full-time at UNCG. Leaving Steelcase at 4:30, 3:30, 4:30, and heading off and going straight over to the university, go right into class. And I loved it. I loved it. And I felt again like I was on my way. Here it is. I'm on my way, doing my thing. I'm on the right path. Then one day, I believe it was a Friday, they called us all to the office. And when they called us to the office, called homes, everybody to the office. When they called us up, I had this feeling inside of me. I knew what they were going to tell us. They sat us all down in this room and they told us, and I remember the man's words almost word for word. He said, we will be closing this facility in the next year and a half. And he said, I want you all to know that there's nothing that you could have done about it. It was simply a business decision. You all have done a wonderful job. And after that, I didn't hear anything else. I was looking around the room at my coworkers, many of whom had worked there for decades. And I could see the tears running down their faces. I could see the uncertainty and the fear on some of them's faces. They didn't know where they were going. Now, I knew where I was going. I wasn't afraid. I'd been expecting it. As a matter of fact, I'd been expecting it for a number of years for the place to eventually move. And so when I walked out of that room, my major concern was not about me. My major concern was about some of my coworkers who I know were trapped in this limbo. They were almost ready to retire, but not quite ready to retire, and probably walking out wondering who's going to hire a 50-plus-year-old upholsterer or sewer. We've given decades to this place now, and it's moving away out from underneath. There was a lot of tears and sadness and fear on that day. But on the last day when I left that place, I wrote a note to my coworkers, and I can't remember the exact word number, but I told my coworkers to not be dismayed, because when God closes a door in our lives, He always opens another. And I told them that this thing would lead to bigger and better things. And I can go back and I can look at many of my coworkers, and I can see that it indeed led to bigger and better things. One of my coworkers in particular, who was very distressed about the job leaving, she is now a concierge for a large hotel service. Makes probably 3-4 times as much money as she made at Steelcase. And I can count off other people who have gone off and done other great things from that job and moved on with their lives and been able to succeed. But that pain in those faces is still there with me. As I moved on out of Steelcase, I went to a place called Davis Furniture, and I was able to get a job there where I continued my education. And that's what I did for the next 2 to 3 years. That's what I was doing, working at Davis Furniture as a material handler and going to school full time. Trying not to get my PhD, to actually get my bachelor's degree, which I don't have yet. So in the midst of all this, I got up one morning, was watching the news. Somebody said something about the Greensboro City Council trying to cancel a gun show. Now, I got mad about that for 2 reasons. Number one, I'm a fierce defender of our constitutional freedoms. That's number one. But number two, more selfish reason. I had a shirt in my closet that had a sock in the pocket that had a few $100s in it that I had been squirreling away to buy me an AR-15 from the gun show. And I thought, how dare you try to cancel this gun show because of the actions of some criminal in Florida? Well, one thing led to another, and we found out they couldn't do it. They had to try to influence the Coliseum director to do it. And said they were going to have this special meeting about gun violence in Greensboro, and I decided to go. My life is on this track to become a history professor. I'm loving school. My job's not that bad. You know, my life was pretty good. And it was going just like I wanted it to go. But I went down there to that meeting and I heard some things that made me mad, and I decided to get up and open my big mouth. Next thing I know is Fox News is calling. Congressman Walker called me on the phone and told me Fox News wanted to talk to me. And, you know, my life just got caught up in this, almost in this whirlwind. Totally changed the direction of my life. Next thing you know, I'm not in school anymore. I quit my job. I'm traveling liberally all over the world speaking to people. Whole direction of my life has changed. And then somebody came up with the crazy idea that I should run for office. I don't know who that was. I'm thinking about finding him. And we threw our hat in the ring for lieutenant governor, had an 8-way primary. And I guess you all know the story. It's obvious the ending of the story. I ended up the lieutenant governor of North Carolina. Now, how in the world does that happen? How does that happen? How does this poor kid from the east side of Greensboro that doesn't have a college degree, never run for office, I didn't really know any rich and powerful people. I never run a big business. You know, there's nothing really special about me. How in the world do I end up lieutenant governor? I can tell you how I ended up lieutenant governor. I ended up lieutenant governor because I live in the greatest country in the world. There is no other nation on earth where my story could happen. None, not one. There's no other place in this world where somebody could come up from the rags that I came up to where I'm at right now. Not in this amount of time. Not in this amount of time. And it could not have happened without God. You see, I want you to think back to when you were a kid. You're sitting on the floor, maybe you were playing with Barbies, or maybe you were playing with Tonka trucks or Hot Wheel cars. And in your mind as a child, you were building a great city or road. You know, you were directing traffic, or you were getting your children ready for school. Those Barbies were your children. And you're doing all these great things in your mind as a child. Then your parents come along and say, you know, put that away. I've got something different for you to do now. I believe that's the same thing God did to me back in 2018. He saw the plans that I'd made, but he had different plans for me. And he had a different set of things and orders that he had written out for me to do. And so here I am on this course. So people ask me all the time, they say, why are you so passionate about the things that you believe in? I'm passionate about them, number one, because I believe God has sent me on this mission to be passionate about it. And what are those things? One of the main things that I'm most passionate about is making sure that everybody in this state has an equal opportunity to succeed. So I've traveled across this state. One of the most disturbing things that I've seen as I've traveled across the state is some of the inequity that we see in our economy across the state. You go out to places like Charlotte and you see all the wonderful big buildings and businesses and economies thriving, and then you meet all the great people, and then you go out east and you meet these great folks out east. And the number one thing they all say is, this part of the state needs help. You know, we need some economic opportunity out in this part of the state. And as I've driven back and forth across the state, and I've looked back on my own life and the lives of people that I've known, the one thing that I would like to see is for this state, from one corner to the other, to be a place, no matter where you are, that economic opportunity exists. Another thing that drives me greatly is the faces of those workers. As we were walking out of that meeting, pain in their faces when they lost their jobs. It puts a ferocity in me to be independent in this state, to make sure that no matter what legislation it may be, whether it be state or federal, no matter what it may be, that whatever legislation that we pass in this state or this nation, it protects the people of this nation, that we put them first. We need people in office who remember what it's like to struggle to pay bills. Who remembers what it's like to be called into an office and told that the job that you've depended on for the last 10, 15 years is moving to Mexico. It's moving to China. And next month, you'll be out of work. We need people in office who remember those things and remember those faces and remember those experiences, because that is what will drive us to be what we're supposed to be as elected officials, which is not leaders. We are supposed to be servants to the people who elected us. And that's what I want to be. And it's the only reason why I stand in this position today. I stand in this position for people like my mom, who worked as a custodian for 30 years to feed her children. I stand in this position for people like my friend Tommy Underwood, who was when he lost his job, he didn't know where he was going to go and what he was going to do. And I could see it in his face every day. Those are the people that I'm here for, to make sure that everybody in this state no matter who you are, where you come from, what your circumstances is, you know, and can be secure in the fact that you have people in Raleigh, you have people in Washington who know your struggle, are concerned about you, and will give you what you need to succeed and will help you to succeed. So, I don't like to make promises as an elected official. I don't like it. But I can promise you this, that if you ever see me get to the point where I'm no longer a servant, if you ever see me get to the point where I'm arrogant with my head back and my nose up, I want you to come and find me. And I want you to remind me of this speech and what I've said here today. And I want you to take the rightful place as the master in this nation and put me back in my place. And my place as an elected official should be to be a servant. I've learned how to do that throughout my life. And I've seen the blessings. I have seen the blessings of servants in my life. So it's time for me to pass on that blessing to someone else. And that's my promise to you as I serve in this capacity. God bless you all. God bless this club, and God bless the great state of North Carolina.
Few minutes for questions.
I got it.
I'm gonna get, yes, sir.
Just a quick question. I might have the details of the facts wrong, but I think the former governor of United Kings saw our governor of Medicaid expansion or something like that.
Mhm.
Given that I'm first year of Navy, as soon as I stopped crying for it, I'm grateful. But anyway, Medicaid expansion, I think would help a lot of people that were characterized as people.
Mhm.
Is that on your radar? Do you have anything on that?
I'm very leery of Medicaid expansion, and here's why. I'm very leery because I don't like the intrusion of the federal government. I really believe that the medical professionals and the legal professionals that we have here in North Carolina, I think if North Carolina comes together, we put some of our political differences aside to say, healthcare is not a political issue, it's a human issue. If we put that aside, I believe we can come up with a better program than Medicaid expansion. I do not believe that the key to innovation is not imitation. We need to be innovative in this state. And I think if we put our heads together, we won't need Medicaid expansion. North Carolina can come up with its own great healthcare system. I believe that. Yes, sir.
What was the prize the young man won?
$20. That's a lot of money for a kid. Yes, sir.
What kind of pressure are you feeling from the federal government now?
Other than that, the gas pump. The biggest concern that I have right now in my capacity as lieutenant governor as it pertains to the federal government is how it pertains to education. I said it once, I said it twice, I said it 1,000 times. The federal government needs to get out of education in North Carolina, and they can take their money with them. We spend half of our state budget on education, and we can't teach our children to read. It's not because we don't have enough money, it's because we're not putting that right efforts into the right places. We're not putting the right dollars into the right places. If we spend our money more efficiently, and if I believe if we get back to those time-honored traditions in education, we have a much better result. But we don't need the federal government to do that. And I've said time and time again, they need to keep away from education. Yes, sir.
Can you give us some specifics of what you would recommend this change in the education system?
The number one thing that I think we need to focus on in education, number one, and then, this sounds crazy to these folks that I serve with on the state school board. I think the grades 1 through 5 should be strictly reserved for 3 things and 3 things only: reading, writing, and mathematics. I think, now, I'm, again, student of history. I read a book called Barry Benson's Civil War book. In that book, Prior to the Civil War, when Barry Benson, the man who wrote it, was a Confederate soldier. Prior to the Civil War, when he was in school, he speaks about being in the 6th grade, learning Greek and Latin. In the 6th grade. And now we can't teach our children to read on a grade level. I'm sure back then they weren't spending half the state budget on public education, but those children were learning to read on Greek and Latin. We need to get back to that, because I believe if you teach a child how to read and write and do mathematics, they can just about teach themselves how to do anything else. So that is the number one thing. The second thing we need to do is we need to make a major shift in our education system to open up opportunities to our children. You know, one of the things that I see a lot is this, and I'm sure you see it too. Folks who come from other countries, they come here sometimes as adults, and they succeed at a higher rate than people who've been here for years. And I believe the reason why is because they see the opportunities. We built up a forest right now in this country where our children, they can't see the forest for the trees. They want to succeed, but they don't know how. And I submit to you that one of the reasons why is because in our education system, we are not opening up those opportunities to it. We have got to continue to do that. We've got to get it so that when a child gets out of high school, they have a pretty good idea of what it is they want to do with it. And that doesn't mean I'm going to college and build up a bunch of debt and coming out and not using my degree and working somewhere else, and being saddled with all this debt and complaining about it. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a child getting to the 12th grade saying, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a construction worker, or I want to be a plumber, or I want to be an electrician, or I want to be a lawyer, and having a course set where they can go out once they leave high school and move right into becoming what it is they want to be. We've really got to work on that as well. So those are the two things I think more than anything we need to do in education.
Follow up on that.
Sure.
Rare, but occasionally I will substitute teach.
Yes.
And I see this horrible lack of distance that disrupts all the classes. They can't do much with kids, can't do anything with them, really. They know it, and they rule the classrooms and really make it rough on the ones who
Didn't want to bring that up. Since you mentioned that is, you know, I think many of you may know that we have started tackling some of the objectionable materials in our schools. We've taken on that fight wholeheartedly. We're continuing that fight. But the next part of our fight in education is to restore some discipline back into the classroom. It's got to be done. You cannot operate a business with no discipline. You cannot operate your home without a discipline. And teachers and principals cannot operate the school without discipline. It has got to come back, and the excuses have got to stop. I've got people on the state school board that we bring up the issue of discipline. They want to look at papers and numbers, but they don't want to talk to the people. They don't want to talk to the teachers that I've talked to who've been teaching for 25 years who say, this is the last year. I'm not putting up with it anymore. I'm tired of going to school every day being afraid for my life. So we got to start dealing with the real issue and get to the bottom of it and solve it. And be quite honest with you, like a lot of other problems, because there's a bureaucracy there that's covering up the problem, we get that bureaucracy out of the way, we'll find that solving that problem is a lot easier than we think. A lot easier.
So I'm one of those guys that moved here to this country 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We started from zero. We're definitely blessed that we moved here in North Carolina because we felt that we were safe and the kids have freedom. Now, what are we doing to bring, change the subject, what are we doing to bring manufacturers that move to China and factory in North Carolina?
Well, that's something that probably would be best answered by the congressman over here. And he's running for Senate as well. But when we start talking about maintaining jobs here in North Carolina, I think what it's going to take, and I hate to say this because I sound like I'm being so political, but it's just the bottom line. We've got to start electing people who care more about We have to start electing people who care more about America and Americans than they do their own pocketbooks. I just said.
Thank you.
People that when they sit out and vote for a bill, they don't look at it and say, well, if I vote for this bill, the special interest group that financed my campaign is going to get mad at me. They're going to look at that bill and say, if I don't sign this bill, it's going to protect American workers, it's going to protect American jobs, it's going to protect American businesses. That's the people that we need in office. And those are the people that we got to start searching out and sending to find those solutions to make sure that those jobs come back, because there's no reason why this country shouldn't be self-sustaining. And the only reason why it's not, I submit to you, the only reason why it's not, the major reason, is because of greed. One person would rather have $10 billion than to make sure that his neighbors and his friends have jobs. So the short answer, that's what we need. We need people who care more about America and Americans than they do about their pocket. I'm probably in trouble now, but anyone else? Yes, sir.
I'm sure you're well aware, the Greensboro area is one of several areas that are considered a food desert, with considerable lack of food for many people. And I will say for Rotarians, I and many probably the people in this room have participated in food packing projects. I don't want to sound like charity, but they've produced over 1 million meals. And there doesn't seem to be any concerted effort to deal with the fact that there are many people who just don't have food, and that has to do with education. It has to do with future prospects.
Absolutely. Well, speaking specifically to Greensboro, and I'm probably going to get in trouble again. But speaking specifically to Greensboro, when you talk about food deserts and the lack of movement on that, I think you should also take a look at the lack of movement on the homeless problem that we have. I understand the plight of the homeless, and I understand how people can become homeless. But I believe as a city elder, as a person who sits on the city council, or as the mayor, it is not your job to be codependent with those folks. It's not your job to make it easier for them to be on the streets and be on drugs and alcohol. There should be an active, you should be active in trying to get those folks off the street. And right now, we just don't see any of that in Greensboro. Every street corner, you see homeless, you see people with cardboard signs. And there's absolutely no movement from the leadership of this city to do anything about it. The same way you're talking about with these food deserts. One of the things that I think solves food deserts more than anything is activism within the community. The folks inside the community have to band together and get active. We certainly, the politicians certainly play a role, but I think more than anything, what it takes is the folks inside those communities get active, see the problem, and do something about it. A call to action from them. That being said, I believe the elected officials can lead that charge. And right now, just like with the homeless population, it's almost like, we don't see this problem. So just go out and go beg, and we'll leave you alone, and you leave us alone. We'll do what we're doing, and you do what you're doing. There needs to be more partnership between, and more contact between the city elders of Greensboro and the people of Greensboro, which again goes back to that issue of the ballot box. That's how we change that. We change that by putting people in office who are actually going into office to make changes for people. And the only way you're going to make changes for people is to contact those people and directly get involved with them. And, I watch Greensboro city government pretty closely, and I just don't see that happen. I don't see it happen. That's why that problem is not getting solved. That's why the homeless problem is not getting solved. Yes.
Lighter note, the boy won the $20.
Yes.
Did you buy an AR-15? Did you finally get your AR-15?
Oh, yeah.
Whose did you buy?
Who?
Yeah, what manufacturer?
The first one I bought was Smith & Wesson. Then I got Daniel Defense. And then, do I need to keep going?
I wanted to know, the boy won the $20, and you said, I got this money in this pocket, this sock, I was going to go buy me an AR. So
Yep.
I just thought I'd like to hear to complete the story.
Yeah, that kid's name is Jesse Paddock. His dad is actually a firefighter here in Greensboro. All right, now time for one more. Yes, ma'am.
Going to refrain, but I have to ask, based on your last question. So how do you feel as an elected official that the votes we cast are the votes that are counted at the end of the day in the state of North Carolina?
Huge issue, huge issue. You know, the whole world looks to the United States as the bastion of freedom. But the United States can only remain the bastion of freedom if we remain a constitutional republic, not a democracy. Lord, I don't want to live in a democracy. Ooh, democracy is a prison yard, is a democracy. Mob rules. We live in a constitutional republic, but we have a democratic process, and that democratic process is the vote. That is what keeps our constitutional republic alive. If our vote is not secure, our constitutional republic is not secure. It's the bottom line. And here it is. In 2016, when Donald Trump won, all those folks on the left said, Russia helped Donald Trump cheat to win, and our voting system is messed up. In 2020, when President Biden won, everybody on the right said this vote was messed up. Our voting system is in danger. It's in peril. So my thing is this: the folks on the left have said the voting system needs change. The folks on the right have said the voting system needs change. People on the right are Americans that live in a constitutional republic. The people on the left are Americans who live in a constitutional republic. It's time for us to come together and fix the problem. Not for Democrats, not for Republicans, but for America, for our constitutional republic. It's way past time. Our voting system should be the voting system that every other nation on earth looks at and says, that's how you do it. That's how you make sure that your vote is secure. It starts with voter ID. It starts with making sure that we have secure machines. And it starts by making sure that the people who are counting those votes are held to the absolute highest standard. This is not your problem. It's not my problem. It's our problem. All right, I think that's it. Thank y'all very much. We appreciate it.
City Rotary will be donating honor to Paul Elementary.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it so much. Thank you.
And I've been asked by a guest in the room to pass this along to you, which is a magazine on.
It sure is. I'm gonna read this in the car on the way home. Thank y'all so much. We appreciate y'all.
Thank you. This is